Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I know I've been slacking on the Sports Ball Network basketball content recently, but I'm hoping to resuscitate this content before the NBA playoffs. In this video, I'm going to discuss who I think should win each major award and who will make the All-NBA, All-Rookie, and All-Defensive teams. Keep in mind, these are not my actual predictions for the awards because that would just be going to FanDuel and seeing who the favorites are, and that's boring. So I'm going to do my picks. Let's get right into it. I could keep y'all waiting for the biggest award of them all, but that's not how we do it around here. We're starting off with a bang with the MVP award. Joel Embiid was the frontrunner for this award until his injury in January, and since that point the media has just assumed that Nikola Jokic would win. I mean, he obviously had another amazing season. He played in 79 games and averaged 26.4 points, 12.4 rebounds, and 9 assists per game on ridiculous efficiency, and led his team to the second seed in the Western Conference. Giving Nikola Jokic his third MVP would put him in a tier of NBA legends and cement his legacy as one of the greatest players of all time. Only Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James have won 3+ MVPs in their career. However, if I was a voter, I would have a little bit of voter fatigue voting for Nikola Jokic again, and I would go a different route. I would choose Luka Doncic as my MVP. He finished with an absurd stat line of 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists per game on 49, 38, 79 splits. One of the big issues here is the standings. The Mavericks finished with a record of 50-32, but due to the competitiveness in the Western Conference, that was only 5th place, but come on. This is an otherworldly stat line for a team that finished the year off on fire. They would have been on 55 or 60 win pace if the year started after the All-Star break when they made their trades at the trade deadline, everything like that. Although I think Nikola Jokic will deservedly get MVP number 3, my vote would be for Luka Doncic. Next award I'm going to talk about is the Most Improved Player award, and I assume you've seen this on Instagram, but I gotta mention it. Dante DiVincenzo not being eligible for this award is stupid. He wouldn't have won it, probably would have been like 4th place, but still, he played the 48th most total minutes in the NBA and played 81 of 82 games, yet he still doesn't qualify. It is pretty unfathomable that someone playing for Tom Thibodeau actually missed a minutes requirement. Anyways, regarding the actual award, it's come down to a two-man race of Tyrese Maxey and Kobe White. Again, Tyrese Maxey here is the odds-on favorite, but if I had a vote, I would go the other way with Kobe White. Now, 76ers fans, don't get mad at me. Tyrese Maxey has had an amazing season, and you will see he is on my All-NBA ballot. He upped his scoring average by 5.5 points in only 4 extra minutes of playing time, and raised his assist average by 2.7 per game, and became an All-Star for the first time in his young career. The big storyline was that Maxey was out without Embiid for a large part of the season, and had to quickly adapt to being a number 1 option, which he did pretty well. His efficiency numbers took a little bit of a hit, but he was still about league average with his efficiency. But this year, Kobe White went from being called a bust to now still being part of the Bulls' future. He increased his scoring average by almost 9.5 points per game, his rebounding average by 1.6 per game, and his assists by 2.3 a game. He did play 13 more minutes to do this, but he's obviously an improved player. He was one of 2 main perimeter players for the Bulls after Zach LaVine's injury, and he was even a little bit more efficient than last year. Both are deserving, but I usually like the bad to good storyline for Most Improved Player rather than the good to great storyline, so I would give it to Kobe White. Next up we have Rookie of the Year, and this was close for about half the season, but now it's inarguable. By the season's end, Victor Wembanyama played 71 games and had averages of 21, 10.5, 4 assists, and 3.5 blocks per game. I mean, it's just unbelievable. One of the best rookie seasons of all time. He was one of the best defenders in the NBA as a rookie, truly impactful, and a lock to make an all-defensive team. After the All-Star break, we saw what Wemby could really be in his prime, and it was scary. He averaged 23.5 points, 12 rebounds, 5.3 assists, and 4.5 blocks per game. That is some alien stuff. Chet Holmgren had a great rookie season too, don't get me wrong. He played every game, averaged 16, 8, and 2.5 blocks on great efficiency. He was top 10 in defensive rating, and he was one of the main contributors on a young, surprising team that finished number 1 in the Western Conference. In 80% of seasons, that will win you Rookie of the Year, but when you're going against Wemby, it's just not nearly enough. Sticking on the theme of Victor Wembanyama, the Defensive Player of the Year, if Victor Wembanyama was on a better team, he easily could have won this award as a rookie. I know DPOY is not just decided by steals and blocks, but the impact he has in the paint is real. I don't know how much time I'm going to have to edit this video, but if I have time, I'm going to throw in some highlights here of 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 fast breaks where the other team literally doesn't even attempt a shot because Wemby is in the paint. Like I said, blocks don't tell the full story, but averaging almost 4 blocks per game is definitely not a bad thing for your case. Rudy Gobert had the best defensive rating in the NBA at 104.4, with Wembanyama second at 105.8. Rudy Gobert had the luxury of having other great defenders like Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels around him, while Wembanyama had Jeremy Sohan playing point guard for like a third of the season. Rudy Gobert should enjoy getting his 4th DPOY, because if Wemby stays healthy, he's never getting another one. For the 6th Man of the Year, we also have a hot 2-man race between Malik Monk and Naz Reid. Malik Monk looked like he had this thing wrapped up about a month ago. I think he even reached like minus 1,000 odds at one point. But he went cold in March, then he got injured, and Naz Reid has had a scorching end to the regular season. So who is my winner? I really wanted to be contrarian again and pick Naz Reid, but I'm going to stick with the favorite in Malik Monk. With the injury and subpar play of Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk has had a lot of responsibilities as a secondary scorer, but he also really upped the ante this year as a secondary playmaker too. He averaged over 15 points and 5 assists for the season, coming off the bench for all 72 of his games. Naz Reid was amazing, but they already had good play from Cat and Gobert. I think Malik Monk with his skill set was just a little bit more valuable to the Kings' success, so I'm gonna go with Malik Monk. Coach of the Year is the next award, and I won't spend too long on it, as it's one that could not be more obvious. The Oklahoma City Thunder went 57-25 and grabbed the 1st seed in a stacked Western Conference, when some people, like me, thought they would be a play-in team in this stacked Western Conference. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a borderline MVP candidate. Chet Holmgren stayed healthy and played all 82 games and excelled as a rookie. I mean, Mark Daigneault did a fantastic job with this young group and will easily win the award, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Jamal Mosley, who took a Magic team that many expected to be a fringe play-in team and brought them to a 47-35 record and the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. Good job by both of them, but Mark Daigneault will win the award. And finally, the last award is the Clutch Player of the Year. This one is kind of a tough one because there are clutch stats and stuff, but it's also just a very based on vibes kind of award. From a pure stats perspective, I think the 2 best clutch players were actually Steph Curry, who finished 10th in the Western Conference with the Warriors, and DeMar DeRozan, whose Bulls finished 9th in the Eastern Conference. The options on better teams are like SGA, Jalen Brunson, but honestly, their stats kind of pale in comparison to Curry and DeRozan. I think I'm going to have to give this award to DeMar DeRozan. For DeMar DeRozan, he had amazing clutch stats. In 40 clutch games, the Bulls went 24-16, with DeRozan averaging 4.6 points, 0.7 rebounds, and 0.4 assists on 49, 47, 88 shooting splits in like 4 minutes. He made the Bulls a 2.4 point positive in those clutch minutes he was on the floor, and that's saying something because the Bulls were not a good team. And alright, time for some of the exciting stuff. Let's talk about the All-NBA teams now. So, for my first team, I have Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum. The first three, Luka, Nikola Jokic, and Shea, are almost inarguable in my opinion, unless you want to have some kind of red hot take, but that would make you an idiot. I've already talked a bunch about Jokic and Luka's stats when discussing the MVP award, so there's not too much else to say. Luka averaged a near 34-point triple-double and had the most combined points, rebounds, and assist averages since Wilt. And anytime you're compared to Wilt, that is saying something. Nikola Jokic led his team once again to a top 2 seed, even though they looked like they were cruising for a majority of the season. SGA, like I said, had a fantastic season. I think going into this season I would have ranked him as somewhere between the 10th and 12th best player in the NBA, which I think is pretty high, but you can now make a legitimate case he's a top 5 player in the NBA. He had the most 30-point games, and added on 6 rebounds and 6 assists per night, leading the Thunder to the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. I think Giannis deserves a first-team nod as well. He averaged 30.5 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists per game, with over a steal and a block, shooting over 60% from the field. It doesn't get much better than that. You could argue, since his team disappointingly fell to the 3rd seed, that a guy like Jalen Brunson could get the nod over him, but he just does so much for the Bucks, I'll still give him the nod. And for Jason Tatum, whether I agree with it or not, he just happened to be the best player on the best team in the NBA, so he's probably going to get that last spot. He was good this season. He averaged 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists on good splits, but I think Brunson had a better season, and Brunson did not have the luxury of teams having to guard 3 other all-star caliber players when playing the Knicks rather than the Celtics. Still, I'll give Tatum the 5th spot. For the second team, as I heavily alluded to, Jalen Brunson gets a spot there. I'm also going to give Domantas Sabonis, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, and Anthony Edwards second team honors. Jalen Brunson's the obvious one. He easily could have been first team All-NBA. He averaged almost 29 points and 7 assists per night, shooting 48% from the field and 40% from 3. He did all of this while leading the Knicks to their first 50-win season in a decade and the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Over the last 10 games, he averaged 37.8 points per game, which is the 3rd most in like the last 30 to 40 years. He was simply incredible. I think he deserves first team, but will likely slide down to the second team here. Domantas Sabonis, I feel, is starting to become underrated, despite how good he is. He was a double-double and triple-double machine this year, averaging 19.4 points, 13.7 rebounds, and 8.2 assists per game. It's crazy how Europe teaches these big men how to playmake. Jokic, Sabonis, Wembanyama, just not really something they teach big men in the States. Anyway, Sabonis is easily a second-team All-NBA player. Kevin Durant also had an under-the-radar season, I think. He put up his career averages of 27, 7, and 5 on almost 50, 40, 90 shooting, but that's just an average season for Kevin Durant. Obviously, you would have hoped the Suns would be a little bit better as a team, but they are healthy going into a first-round matchup with the Timberwolves, and they are pretty much even odds to advance for most people. Kevin Durant was the stabilizing force for this team, playing 75 games, and never letting the Suns fall down too far in the standings. And the last 2 spots go to Anthony Squared. Anthony Davis, for maybe the first time in his Lakers career, was the best player on his team in my opinion. With LeBron starting to lose a step, he averaged 25 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. He still can't shoot the 3 ball, but he is shooting pretty efficiently from everywhere else. But most importantly for him was number 1, the defense. He averaged 1.2 steals and 2.3 blocks per game. And 2, he was super healthy this year, playing 76 of the Lakers' 82 games. Anthony Edwards also gets the last nod as an extremely improved player. On the surface, you may not see that improvement in the stats, but the Timberwolves didn't just stumble upon the league's 4th best record. He averaged 26 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 5 assists, which is slightly better from a stats perspective than last year, but the real thing is he massively improved on defense. His steals and blocks are lower, but those do not represent defense well. He was constantly taking on the toughest assignments on the other team, and still dominating on the offensive end even with the fatigue from playing great defense. He will be in the running for an all-defensive team. Every other top 3 team has a player on the first 2 All-NBA teams, and I don't think the Timberwolves should be excluded from that, so Anthony Edwards gets the last nod. And for All-NBA third team, I've got LeBron James, Devin Booker, Tyrese Maxey, and Stephen Curry, who I think are the no-doubters, but that fifth spot is so hard. In my mind, it was down to Kawhi Leonard, De'Aaron Fox, and Tyrese Halliburton. If this was a first half of the season award, I think I would have had to give it to Halliburton, but he really struggled to end the season, so I think I'm going to give that final spot to Kawhi Leonard. LeBron James, even his age 39 season, year 21, still averaged 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. It's honestly amazing that he's probably going to earn his 20th All-NBA selection this season. Devin Booker also earns his second All-NBA selection, averaging 27 points and 7 assists per game for the 6th-seeded Suns. He played 68 games just above the qualifying thresholds, and he was just really good. I mean, there's not too much else to say about it. Tyrese Maxey, I think, should earn his first All-NBA selection the same year of his first All-Star selection. He's improved a lot and really took on a lot of offensive responsibilities when Embiid got hurt, and he met or maybe even exceeded it all. Steph Curry, despite the disappointing exit in the play-in tournament, was still great this year. He stuttered a little bit after the All-Star break, averaging only 23 points, and he did have a poor shooting season for his standards at 40.8% from 3, but he still earns his 10th All-NBA selection. And as I mentioned earlier, I chose Kawhi for my final spot. His defense, coupled with the fact the Clippers did not have any representation in the All-NBA teams despite being a 51-win 4 seed, led me to choose Kawhi. He wasn't as dominant as some years past, but he still is a deadly isolation scorer, a good to great defender at times, and he averaged 24, 6, and 3.5 with 2.5 stocks in 68 games played. Next for the all-rookie teams, starting off with the first team, we obviously have Victor Wembanyama and the runner-up of the Rookie of the Year race, Chet Holmgren. No other explanation is needed. The last 3 guys I'm going with are Brandon Miller, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Brandon Podziemski. Despite his troubling summer league, Brandon Miller, he had his ups and downs, yeah, but there were some points in the season where he looked like a legit star. In both February and April, he averaged over 20 points for the month. He had a 35-point game, he had a game with 7 threes. He looks really good as a scorer at points. Jaime Jaquez was kind of the opposite. He wasn't expected to do too much this season, but he started off the season on fire. He was even in the Rookie of the Year race for a little bit. With Tyler Hero sidelined, he was the Heat's 3rd best player, but he did fade a little bit to end the season. Still, he averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists for the season as a whole. The last spot I did decide to give to Brandon Podziemski, mostly for being an extremely productive player, even starting 28 games for a team that was competing for the playoffs. He averaged 9 points, almost 6 rebounds as a guard, and 3.7 assists per game, shooting over 38% from 3. He was really an all-around player. He even led the league in charges taken as a rookie. He's definitely got a long NBA career ahead of him. For my second team of rookies, I have Gigi Jackson, Keontae George, Derek Lively, Scoot Henderson, and Amen Thompson. There is not a games played requirement for all rookie teams, but I still think it has to be taken into consideration that Gigi Jackson only played 48 games. In those games, he averaged almost 15 points, but he did that on below average efficiency and on a terrible Grizzlies team. Keontae George was a little harder to leave off the first team, but again, his inefficiency, shooting only 39% from the field, relegated him to the second team despite averaging 13 points and 4.4 assists per game. Derek Lively also makes the second team in what's really shaping out as one of the most immediately impactful rookie classes we've seen in a while. He averaged 9 points, 7.4 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game as a key starter on a Western Conference playoff team. He played only 55 games, but his stats speak for themselves. I also think Scoot Henderson's late season run is enough to get him on an all-rookie team. He had a really tough start to the season. He couldn't stop turning the ball over, he couldn't shoot, kept fouling. It was hard to watch. But he eventually figured it out and showed great flashes after the All-Star break. For my last spot, I wrestled with a few players. Honestly, it was mainly the two twins, but I did settle on Amen Thompson. Ozor Thompson showed some flashes of defensive dominance this season, but his offense was just so bad, he got played off the floor even for the Detroit Pistons. Amen Thompson, despite also not being able to shoot, was able to create some shots for himself, get to the rim, and he does a lot of other things well. He even notched a triple-double in his final game, so he's going to get the last spot on the second team. And last, but maybe least honestly, depending how much you guys care about this, it is the all-defensive teams. The first three players should come as no surprise. I have Rudy Gobert, my DPOY winner, Wemby, who's the DPOY runner-up, and Anthony Davis, who had 3.5 stocks this season and truly just dominated defensively for the Lakers while staying healthy the whole season. The final two slots I'm giving to Herb Jones and Bam Adebayo, since like the All-NBA teams, this is positionless. Herb Jones, in my opinion, is the best perimeter defender in the entire league right now. He averaged 2.2 stocks, but that does not do justice in how good and versatile of a defender he is. Similar story for Bam too, actually. He averaged 2 stocks, which is good, but doesn't tell the whole story. He can handle himself in any matchup 1 through 5, and just always seems to force players into bad shots. Sorry I don't have any advanced stats here, but I know ball, so just trust me. And finally, for the second team, I have Aaron Gordon, Derek White, Jalen Suggs, Alex Caruso, and Jaden McDaniels. Aaron Gordon held opposing players to about 38% field goal shooting after the All-Star break, which was the best in the entire NBA. His ability to guard 3 through 5 has been a perfect pairing with Nikola Jokic. And Derek White has been an unbelievable defender for the Celtics this year too, especially when you pair him up with another all-defensive level guy in Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. They have an insane defensive team. Jalen Suggs also deserves an all-defense team nomination, as he's been the heart and soul of the suffocating Orlando Magic defense. 2 stocks, and his 3.2 defensive win shares shows his impact on that end. Another guard, Alex Caruso, is also definitely deserving of a spot. He's been the best defender on the Chicago Bulls, and we all know that Alex Caruso is an insane defender. There are a few other guys who I wanted to include here, like Anthony Edwards, but having 3 Timberwolves would have felt excessive, so I went with Jaden McDaniels instead. He's always taking on the best option on the opposing team, honestly, whether it's a perimeter or a big player. So Jaden McDaniels definitely deserves that last spot. Jarrett Allen also deserves some praise for leading a dominant Cavaliers defense, and Chet Holmgren is the last guy I want to shout out. But let me know what you guys think about my picks. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Who knows? This is the Sports Ball Network, signing off. Peace.